Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff Mosher, Adam Caplan here with another exciting edition of Inside the Birds. We have a little bit of news to announce, Adam, that I think it's going to go well with the general public. A couple of things we want to talk about. First of all, we have reached an agreement with 97.3 ESPN in South Jersey that we are Inside the Birds is going to now be the affiliation with their Football at 4 segment that they've done every year for several years now. It was Mike Gill as the host and our own Hunter Brody as his co-host, and they've been doing, and Mike's been doing it with John McMullen, who covers the Eagles for several years. It's become one of their most, it is their most listened to time slot, the 4 o'clock slot of Football on 4, and now it's going to be Adam, myself, and Andrew DeCecco will all do a rotating basis there on 97.3. I know you look forward to that, Adam.
Yeah, can't wait. You've known Mike for many years. I've known Mike, and now we're going to kind of consummate this relationship. But Inside the Birds is going to take over that 4 o'clock. A big hit. My spot's going to be every Thursday at 4 p.m. We're all doing it at 4 p.m. during the week. We're getting started later today. And the great thing is, Geoff, what else do they get? Look, if we're doing this and you don't listen to it live, there's going to be a way you could actually listen to it.
That's right. So make sure you're a subscriber to Inside the Birds YouTube page, because every Football at 4 spot will be posted hopefully by 5 o'clock on the Inside the Birds YouTube page. So if you're driving home from work and you missed it, or for whatever reason you couldn't catch 97.3, if you don't live in the area, you can always download the app, by the way, the free mobile app for 97.3 ESPN. But if you miss it, just go to the Inside the Birds YouTube page and check us out. We'll have it uploaded every day. Speaking of the Inside the Birds YouTube page, we have just wrapped up our interview with Brian Dawkins, and let me tell you, that was a wide-ranging and just a really insightful, as you would expect it to be, very entertaining conversation with Brian Dawkins. Talked a lot about his Brian Dawkins Impact Foundation, the initiatives, Adam, that he's doing with mental wellness, cerebral wellness, as he talks about, and the impact. He's been very open last few years about his struggles with depression, and now he's trying to help, and his foundation is doing some amazing things. So we talked about that, and of course his thoughts on working in the Eagles front office during the Super Bowl and on this year's Eagles roster. Really interesting stuff, Adam, on Kayvon Wallace, the safety drafted from Clemson.
Yeah, and he talked about also when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, him being there, what it was like. But getting back to the mental wellness part, Brian and I worked at ESPN together, and I'm going to say maybe his last year, second to last year, he'd gone public with his struggles with depression. I didn't know this stuff, and I'm working closely with him. In fact, I remember in 2015, Chip Kelly's last year, I really got to know Doc, and we were talking about, because I need to learn more about Chip's offense, and he was breaking it down for me. It was really cool off his iPad, and he was breaking it down from the part of him being a defender and why it wasn't working, because everyone had caught up to him. It was really cool. And Brian's a special guy. Now let's fast forward to our interview with him on our ITB TV, which you can find on YouTube. One of the things I picked up, and I'm going to talk to my wife about this, because I think sometimes when you have a relationship with someone, whether you're married or not married, it could be even with a friend, sometimes things get to be very negative. And if you're negative all the time, Doc talks about it. I'm not going to give it all away, but I've made a mental note. I need to talk to my wife about this. Actually, I may clip this off and show it to her, because it really struck with me. If you're talking negatively all the time, Geoff, you're going to become negative.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it.
And you gotta, I don't, for some reason, it really struck me. It seems so simplistic, but yet so real. And everybody knows Doc, he's about as real as it gets. So it was wonderful seeing him. And boy, the picture was so clear on this, on Zoom, man. They do a great job with it. I was like, wow, he seems like he's in my room here. It's pretty cool.
You know what's scary is, it's funny you mentioned that. I mean, when you watch the video and you'll see he's wearing a pretty tight tee. I mean, the biceps are still bulging. Like, it's been a couple of years now that he's not been a football player.
He works out.
And it looks like he could reach out through the screen and grab you and strangle you.
I didn't know he had tats. Right. I didn't know he had tats. I didn't realize that. Yeah, there you go.
Well, there you go. By the way, this podcast is already going to be infamous for you throwing your wife under the bus, right? You're going to talk to your wife about thinking negatively.
No, it's really me.
You. Yeah. I thought you were throwing the wife under the bus.
No. But I need to talk to my wife about it. about maybe, if she catches me being too negative about stuff, or
That's good.
just for anyone. It's really
No,
for
I think
anyone.
it's
Because Doc's walked it. Look, he's walked it. He's done it before.
no doubt
And
about it.
he's born in Jacksonville. How ironic was it that the 04 Super Bowl played in 05, early in 05, in January of 05. How ironic is it that it's played in his hometown? Like they didn't win it, of course, but thankfully for him, he was able to be experienced. He was on the field after the win in Minnesota against the Patriots.
Yeah, that and the fact that 3 of the most prominent Eagles you can name from 1980 till now all attended Raines High School in Jacksonville, and that would be Brian Dawkins, Lito Shepherd, and Harold Carmichael.
Mm.
I don't.
Oh,
You'd
wow,
be
Carmichael did.
Yeah,
Carmichael went to the same high school as Doc. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know
You'd
that.
be hard pressed to find a high school that produced
my
3
God.
NFL Pro Bowlers,
Jeez.
not for one franchise alone. I mean, that's
Wow.
amazing.
It's a good nugget. I didn't know that. Very good.
Yeah,
Very good.
yeah. Stick with me, kid. You'll learn.
Wow. Congratulations. You got a nugget. I'm just kidding.
We're going to talk today, Adam, about the 53-man roster. We've been writing about it on the website. We're going to kind of take a look today at the offensive side and try to make our best projections of how we see it shaping out. And I think it's going to be an interesting conversation. There's still some players out there that the Eagles, as you mentioned in the last podcast, are pursuing that could wind up being on the 53 that aren't right now even on the roster. So we'll get into that real quick. Just want to let everybody know that our message board on the Inside the Birds Facebook page, or the group page, has reached 800 members. We're so thrilled and excited, trying to get to 1,000. So please help us spread the word. Keep telling your friends to become part of the community board there on the Inside the Birds page. And if you didn't get our last podcast, Adam dropped a lot of good nuggets, especially about the Eagles' interest in Carlos Hyde. So make sure you check that one out. You can check all of our podcasts out on any podcast platform on Inside the Birds, and make sure you're reading InsideTheBirds.com. And if you're in the fix for a little baseball, check out the podcast that I do with Hunter Brody and Frank Klaus, the Powder Blue podcast, because baseball might be coming back soon.
Yeah,
and we've been talking baseball all spring.
Awesome. Okay.
So let's get into it, Adam. Let's talk about the 53-man roster as we kind of look ahead to what might be in late August and September. Quarterback is kind of interesting to me because we had this conversation either in the last pod or maybe the post-draft pod about what's their plan here, right? How many quarterbacks are they going to keep? And if they do sign another veteran, whether it's Josh McCown, and you have mentioned prior interest in Joe Flacco, well, then what does that do for both Nate Sudfeld and Jalen Hurts? Because I think about it from a practice standpoint and snaps and reps, and how does that all work out? So how many quarterbacks ideally do you think the Eagles are keeping this year?
All right. So a couple things here. This show today is just offense, but there's some issues with terms of how many they would keep per position. And quarterback is one where, as we know, Geoff, teams now keep either 2 or 3. And the big movement in recent years is you only have 2 and you keep 1 on the practice squad. Now, let's fast forward to the Eagles situation right now. Mm-hmm. Wentz and Hurts are locks to be on the roster. There's no debate at that, obviously. The question is, are they going to keep 3 or 2? Well, Nate Sudfeld only has $500,000 guaranteed at signing of his $2 million. This is his 4th year with the team. They'd like to keep him. I expect him to be on the roster. So it's going to be 3. So then the question would be, as you just brought up, what about the veteran quarterback? Because it's not a secret. They talked to Flacco, as I reported a couple weeks ago, that he had surgery the first week of April. It's actually the first Thursday in April that he had it. Mm-hmm. And it's actually neck surgery, not back surgery. It's a disc issue. He's going to be ready late August, early September. But that's too late. That's too late. And with Josh McCown, I guess theoretically, if he decides he wants to play because they love him, he's everything they thought he'd be and much more. At 41 years old, they could cut Sudfeld and it's not going to cost them very much. But Nate, as I was told when it happened, and I think he actually talked about this, maybe in some interview somewhere, or maybe with the media when he did his little media hit after he signed, he was told he's going to be able to compete for the number 2 job. So they'd be going back on what he had heard because that was really why he decided to resign. But I think overall, as we summarize it, I'm going to say 3. And then maybe Lauletta, after he gets waived, goes on the practice squad. What do you think?
So, I think I'm in agreement with you. I think that if the Eagles sign a veteran, whether it's Josh McCown or whoever, they're not keeping. I can't see their rationale behind keeping both McCown and Sudfeld now that you have Jalen Hurts on the team. I mean, you look at a practice, right? Carson Wentz is going to get 80 to 90% of the first team reps. The backup, which would either be Sudfeld or McCown or whatever veteran, I keep saying McCown, but I don't know, would get the next 15%. And then Hurts, you would think, would run the practice squad to get as much, NFL type simulated action as he can get. Plus,
yes,
you're always game planning for athletic quarterbacks.
Right, it's called
anyway,
the look
right?
team. Yeah, it's called the look team. Exactly right.
Right.
Good call.
So where is, and I know they did it last year, but this was a little different. They didn't have a second round pick as quarterback, but where is there room for Sudfeld and McCown and Jalen Hurts? I just don't see how it. To me, somebody's getting their development stunted no matter what.
Yeah, and the special rule that they have this year is that you have a 53-man roster, but on game day you can go to 55, which means you could sign 2 guys off the practice squad. You don't have to cut anybody, but one of them, if you sign 2 off of them, has to be a quarterback. So to me, it makes all the sense in the world for them to waive Lauletta before the season starts, whether it's now, well, not now, but they don't have to do anything now. But let's say if they do re-sign McCown, which I'm not saying I'm dubious of, but right now it just doesn't make sense to me because they're going to, once Hurts signs his contract, so 4 quarterbacks on the roster under contract. It's not about money. Sudfeld's only making $2 million. Hurts and Lauletta are minimum players, and Hurts and Lauletta won't count to the top 51 anyway.
Right.
But I just don't see why you need 5 quarterbacks.
Well, isn't the X factor though McCown potentially becoming a coach for the Eagles down the road, where
Right.
you'd want to keep him over Sudfeld and say, hey, we're doing this because not only is Josh going to be our backup quarterback this year, but we're trying to show him our commitment to him being on this coaching staff down the road.
They know but I get it, but he knows they love him. I mean, and by the way, and whenever they had the exit meeting, or I know in January or February, I know they kind of made it clear to him they had interest in bringing him back as a coach someday. I don't know when that would be and what kind of coach. Josh has to make a decision. If he's retiring, he's not going to be ready till sometime in June, coming back from significant hamstring surgery. He's been coaching high school. He lives in North Carolina. Because if he coaches this year, and I'm not saying the Eagles are, because this is before they made all those coaching moves. For this year, even if he's going to be a coach, you can't be going back and forth. You actually have to be here. That's not going to work because you got to coach. It's different than it's a little different. So I don't know. We'll see. But again, I think it's really going to only be because we're really projecting. This is our initial look, by the way. This is not the final. This is our first look. We'll update it every 4 to 6 weeks. Based on moves, and they're within the next week, I expect them to add at least a player at some position. It could be later than that, but I think it could be that running. We'll get the running back. So, do you agree with me? 3 quarterbacks.
Well, you know what, Adam, I just thought about it a little bit more, right? And I kind of talked myself into the concept where this is the only way I could rationally understand keeping 4 with Sudfeld, Hurts, and a veteran, right? If you're feeling that Jalen Hurts with no preseason camp, no rookie camp, no OTAs, and maybe even abbreviated training camp, and who knows, if you're feeling that Jalen's just not going to be ready at all to even be a part of the playbook much or go in and step in, that means you really, as we speak right now, only have Nate Sudfeld as a backup to Carson Wentz. And if Sudfeld were to get hurt, then you'd much rather have McCown than Jalen Hurts running your offense. Or I'm sorry, if McCown's on the team, he's really the backup. And if he got hurt, which he did in the playoffs, then you'd have Sudfeld come in. I guess I can see the Eagles saying, I don't want a situation where we have to play Jalen Hurts if he's not ready. And there's a very good chance with no camps that he's not ready. So it's worth it.
Yeah, I think you would agree with me because when we did our first post-draft show, we both agreed that Sudfeld would have to be the backup. I mean, how could you Hurts has got a lot of development to make. For him to handle all the responsibility of the number 2 quarterback, it's just I don't see it this year. I mean, we'll see. We're not, and as you said, we're not having an off season. I just don't see any way he's a number 2 quarterback. Then the question is, as a third quarterback, do you want to dress him or not? Because in practice, the third quarterbacks get no reps unless he's the look team quarterback, where you're trying to give a specific, okay, you're Russell Wilson this week, or you're whoever you want him to be, trying to mirror him, as you were talking about earlier. But I don't see him getting on the field other than if he's active. I don't want to call him a gimmick player, but you're putting him in for the sort of what we call a package player. Mm-hmm. That's about the only way I see him really active during game day.
Okay, so there we go. So, I mean, we can maybe theoretically see 4 quarterbacks in that situation.
I'm saying 3. No, wait a minute. So you did your piece. We should mention this.
Yes.
On InsideTheBirds.com. The Mosher's too early 53-man Eagles roster projection. I haven't read it yet, by the way, so this is actually good.
Thanks for the support, buddy.
No, but I'll tell you. No, I knew you were going to say that. This is good because I'm not going in predisposed about what your answers were, because I don't know what they were.
Oh, that does help.
Yeah, and then Andrew DeCecco, our guy, who's one of the better young writers out there, by the way, does a great job. He did his. So as we're going here, I'll give you mine as we go along here. So it's pretty cool.
Okay, I'll probably write it down then, so we can put this story up from you, and we can have Caplan's, Mosher's, and DeCecco's.
3. I'm going 3, not 4. So okay, you and I disagree. Wow, did you really write 4?
No. If you were putting a gun to my head, I'd probably
I would never do
3.
that. Okay.
If you were doing that, I would say 3. And like I said, in my story, I put 3, but I just now realized without the camps, if they completely felt that they just could not rely on Jalen Hurts for anything, even a little bit of development this year, then they might want to have a little bit more insurance. Remember, they are the team that puts more emphasis on quarterback than any other team in the league. So you can maybe, I'm just quoting them.
The quarterback factory.
Has anybody ever asked them about Clayton Thorson when they, put out their whole quarterback developers mantra? Is that, did that just like fall by the wayside?
That kid is interesting. The only thing I'll say that I'll defend them with, they wanted him back in the practice squad, and for the life of me, I have no idea why he chose Dallas. I don't understand that.
Well, I think that he chose Dallas because their backup at the time was Cooper Rush. I mean, really, how experienced was Cooper Rush?
I get it, but the problem is you had to think, if you're his agent, that staff could get fired, and they got fired.
Well, that is a good point. Yeah,
and that was my issue with it.
The long view, right?
Right. But it's a fair argument. All right, so we think running 3 quarterbacks. Let's go to running backs, because I could update some information there.
Oh, great. So I mean, obviously Miles Sanders is going to be on the team.
Yeah.
They have Boston Scott, Corey Clement, and Elijah Holyfield right now, all kind of jockeying. And I know they signed 2 rookie. By the way, I meant to bring this up with you, and I think you may have even mentioned this in passing. The Eagles really like their rookie free agent class.
They do. They
really like them.
Well, look, they got Corey Clement right. I'm and Corey, I'm glad that Corey's surgery, from what I understand, went pretty well, but they've gotten to the point now with Corey, and they brought him back. He's making the minimum for his years of service, no guaranteed money in it.
Right.
So they could cut him, they owe him nothing. They liked Corey, that's why he's back. Corey wanted to be back badly. Talking to a source close to him, so he's back. But he's not guaranteed anything to be on the roster. So right now, look, and let's get into it. Mm-hmm. So let's now, it's going to be harder because these kids can't get on the field until probably late July, early August at best. It could be longer than that. Who the hell knows with these training camps? We'll have more information, by the way, on our shows about what we're hearing from teams across the NFL in terms of when they think things might open, or if there's anything new on that end. But here's what we do know. Miles Sanders is their starter. There's no debate. There's no competition. They could say whatever they want, but the real story is Miles Sanders is the guy. Mm-hmm. Boston Scott is what we've described as a change-up. You play him on third down, could play him on special teams. An incredible find for them. Whoever they're, I don't know the real story in this, but it's got to be pro personnel-wise too, because they're involved.
He came from New Orleans, right? He was
exactly right. Phenomenal evaluation. Mm-hmm. And when I saw him in OTAs last year, I was like, all right, they're onto something with this kid. I know they're not in pads, but this kid. I mean, this is not a nice thing to say, but I saw Boston Scott one day. I knew he's better than Donnell Pumphrey. I mean, this kid, he's built low to the ground. He's built like a fire hydrant, and he could leap and move. So he's got a spot. For now, I'm putting Clement on the roster, and they're going to sign a veteran running back. So let me update this situation, because I can't answer. I really don't answer much when it comes to the Eagles on Twitter. So I save it for our show here. So let me. I usually, and I appreciate Geoff and I appreciate all the attention that a minor scoop got. Our backup player, someone said to me, and I'm just going to repeat that a personnel executive said to me, who listened to our show. He goes, when you put a scoop out like that, had this been in August, no one would care. But he goes, this time of year when no one has anything better to do, this is what they're talking about. And it's a backup player, for goodness sake. Give me a break.
I was a little surprised myself, pleasantly.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I love it, man. I'm not complaining, but I thought it was funny. But anyway, look, Carlos Hyde fits what they want in terms of a backup running back. Experience, coming with best year as a pro, way more durable than Devontae Freeman, who I'll get to in a second. But he doesn't have Devontae Freeman's versatility. When you look at both running backs, because they're on both of them, Hyde makes a little bit more sense to me. Because I'm telling you, we told our listeners, folks, if you're new to our show, we first put this out at the Combine. He said, it's real simple, folks. They're done in the injury race. They're not bringing in any receivers that turn out to be correct. They're going away from players in free agency who've had an injury history in the draft. 100% correct through the draft. We got that right.
Correct.
Now, there's also a belief around the league that everyone becomes a bargain. Devontae Freeman, talking to multiple league sources, is not a bargain. He is looking for the market for backup running back of his experience. Well, here's the problem.
What is the bet?
I'm going to get to that.
Know what that market is. Yeah.
Here's the problem. He didn't sign before the draft. As explained to me by multiple personnel people, we have all the leverage. They don't. When Carlos Hyde's out there, Lamar Miller has come back from ACL reconstruction, but he'll be fine at some point relatively soon. Isaiah Correll, who we've mentioned, LaShawn Shady McCoy, the Eagles have some interest, but he's a little bit down on the board. Ty Montgomery, who's Mosher and I have a man crush on, but I got a little bit of information on him, which I'm going to get to in a second. Bilal Powell, I remember from the Jets, who's older though, but he's got versatility. Spencer Ware, though, I'm told the Eagles don't want him. Wendell Smallwood, former Eagle. I know he's not great, but there are guys out there, Geoff. So he doesn't have a lot of leverage here. But I'm told, though, with Freeman, he's got like 3 or 4 teams in it. The Eagles do like him to a certain extent, but their concern is this, Geoff, at running back. Let's say Sanders couldn't play for a bit. You know, people have asked us, well, why do they need to sign a running back? You can't go with Corey Clement because it's last 2 seasons he spent on injury reserve. You can't go with him.
Right.
Okay. So they need someone experienced who's done it before.
Sure.
Freeman and Hyde clearly have something left. Freeman, though, the last 2 seasons missed a lot of time. Actually, 3 seasons he's missed a lot of time. But he's a better football player. So that's kind of where that's at.
So let me ask you this. I drank your Kool-Aid, and for my projection story, I had the Eagles keeping 4 running backs: Sanders, Hyde, Boston Scott, and Corey Clement. So I drank the Carlos Hyde Kool-Aid there. Do you feel like that's going to happen, or do you think that it's going to be somebody else? I mean, are you?
Here's the way it's explained to me. Okay. Hang on 1 second. Okay. So make sure it wasn't a text.
Eagle sign Carlos Hyde. Text.
No, God forbid. Oh my God. Yeah, no. I was doing an interview. I was doing an interview on WFAN on Tuesday. They'd asked me about Logan Ryan, and I knew that the Jets had some interest, but nothing was really, really seriously going on. So then, Manish Mehta put the story out that the Jets think they're getting him, and I'm like, oh, geez. Just during the interview, they did it.
Oh man,
he put it out. I was like, oh, geez. I just
trying to sabotage you. That's not.
Yeah, right. And Manish and I go way back. No, but I thought it was funny. But I here's the problem with these guys. Unless they're, I could just talk from the Eagles' sake because I know the Seahawks are in on Freeman. Seahawks are looking for a power runner to back up Chris Carson as a stud, who's on the final year of his rookie deal, by the way. The Eagles, as I put on our show last time, and nothing has changed. They're looking at a 1-year relationship. Sanders is the guy. And as you correctly said, they are so bullish on these young kids, these two kids, Killen's kid.
Yeah.
And
Warren.
Michael Warren.
I'm sorry, Warren, yeah.
And Elijah Holyfield, Evander's son. They want to see what these kids can do. Because using Corey Clement as an example, I mean, hell, Clement beat out 4 players his first year for roster spot.
He did. He did.
Know?
I probably, if I did this roster projection story all over again, I may not have Corey on it, only because I've kind of discovered how much they love They're two, the rookie free agent signings, and I think Holyfield has something to prove, and if he can stay healthy. I just think I probably gave Corey the benefit of the doubt of being Corey Clement, Super Bowl 100 yards receiving, but all that stuff is a clean slate now, and there's a lot of competition here. I guess we'll see.
Geoff, well, here he hasn't looked
Warren,
first of all, wait, one thing. He's not looked the same. Let's call it like it is.
No doubt about
Corey
it.
has not looked, he did not look good at all last season. But that was the thing. I don't know if he was hurt before he was lost for the season. He just didn't look right.
Right.
But they know how high of a character he is, how hard he competes. He's a special teams player. He's got value because he can handle so many roles. But if you can't stay on the field, you're no good at teams. I'm sorry to say it like that, but that's the way they think. He's gotta look. He wanted to be back. They wanted him back. Good luck. But talk. I'm sorry, I interrupt you, but why? So your thinking is that one of these two kids could push him off the roster?
Well,
one of three kids.
I mean, if you look at a position where you can see a rookie free agent making the team, running back is usually one of those positions.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy makes a team basically on special teams. He can be inactive. I mean, they're looking for potential and upside. And, we know about Killins. He's got very like 5'8", 177. He can run. Mike Warren is interesting to me because he's a little, 5'9", 218, big power guy. And he went to Cincinnati. So whenever the Eagles get a guy from Cincinnati, it winds up working well, whether it's Jason Kelsey or Brent Selleck or Trent Cole. I mean, I don't know if any other team that hits on Cincinnati players as good as the Eagles do. So,
it's fun. They brought that receiver in.
Marty Gilliard?
You got it. Damn, that was a good call by you. Damn. Marty, by the way, is Mardy, which is an odd, because he was good running after the catch. When they brought him in, he was done. He just didn't do well, but it's funny. I was thinking of one guy that didn't do well, and it's the way our brains work as we get older. I cannot believe you remembered it that quickly. Good job, because I couldn't remember the name. Yeah, good job.
It's a sickness. I'm not really proud of it.
We both have that. And by the way, our listeners, our devoted message board group, you and I pop in there every day. It's so funny, the minutia, because these are really smart fans. And sometimes I don't even jump in because they already know, they have the information. It's like that. We were right about this when we started the show. It's going to wind up being the smartest fans out there. My God, folks, join the message board. You cannot believe these high-level conversations.
They're great.
And it's very close. By the way, it's very clear some of these people have coached, because it's really interesting. I don't jump into most of them, but I see everybody talk to each other. It's really, really cool. So anyway.
So, real quick though,
running back? Yeah,
I think 4 is fair at running back.
Yep,
right? I mean, however it shakes out is 4, and probably 2 on the practice. If Killins or Warren don't make it onto the 53, then I think that they're pretty good locks to make the practice, unless they just fall on their faces in camp. But
right. So to finish this off, whenever I can't tell you if it's going to be tomorrow, a week from now, or 3 months from now. They're going to add a veteran running back. Now, if they get shut out, it would be more their decision. It's not that they're going to be. They know other teams are interested in Freeman and Hyde and less so Shady. They're gonna. They could. They don't have to do anything until August. It's not. I know fans think it's fantasy football. Okay, we got to have one now. We got to have. That's not the way teams think, particularly after the draft, because these clubs have leverage in the biggest way. I was talking to a team on the West Coast the other night. They're looking at a position where they need a certain type of player, but they're like 7 of them. And they're offering MSB deals, which means minimum salary benefit. And the agents are telling the team, like, look, we could just wait till August. And they're, you know what, go ahead if that's what you want to do, but we're not going to offer you any more until August. I mean, we're not going to offer you any more in August than we're doing now. So this is the tug of war that clubs are having with agents now, because after the draft, clubs know they have leverage. But if there are only 2 players left at a position and there are 4 teams in it, you've lost your leverage and you better go get that player.
There you go. So Miles Sanders, top 10 running back in fantasy football next year?
Fantasy. Let's get to that. So Geoff and I are big fantasy guys. I see my buddy John Hansen and I have done this show on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio for 17 years. I'm more bullish. He loves him, but I've got Sanders. John thinks right now he's a second round pick. If I have a pick late in the first round in a PPR league, which means you get points per reception.
Sure.
I'm drafting him late in the first round. That's how I think special this kid is.
I would combine that with the offense and the playmaking talent around him and the usage, because now we're finally going to see Doug Peterson use a feature back who can basically run he doesn't have to come off and mix and match running backs anymore. It wouldn't shock me if he had more total yards than Ezekiel Elliott. So I would definitely put him as a mid to late first round pick in fantasy. I think he's going to be a breakout player as long as he stays healthy.
I do. This kid, that was the Minnesota game where he caught that bomb.
Yeah, he caught. Yeah, and then Detroit, he caught 2 as well. Yeah,
he blew right by it, and his hands. It's funny, people were killing him at Penn State for having bad hands. We sure as hell couldn't see that go away. He hit fumbles, but this kid's dynamic. I mean, it's funny when you talk to people and they know that they nailed the pick. They kind of knew it in training camp, but they wanted to keep, because they just want to keep it down. And obviously he had the setback in week 2 when he got benched against Atlanta. Mm-hmm. But when as the season went along and then Jordan Howard got hurt, and then you saw him the Buffalo game where he was fantastic, big play after the Minnesota game, which I mentioned. And it's funny because they were going to draft McCaffrey in 17 had he been there, but he didn't come close to where they were.
Right.
In a way, I'm kind of glad that they have Sanders, just because this kid is different than McCaffrey. McCaffrey's a stud. He'll probably be a Hall of Famer. Mm-hmm. But you know what? You didn't have to spend a first-round capital, and this kid's going to be your starter for 8 to 10 years if he stays healthy.
And the kid I think we need to remind people, he had over 1,300 combined yards last year, rushing, receiving, in a very split role. And sometimes he was absent early in the year. He had fumble issues. So I think it's fair to look at him as someone who's going to have about 15 to 1,600 combined yards, and that would put him probably in the top 10. So we'll see.
How many catches do you think? How many catches?
I think 50 is achievable.
Yeah, I got 50 to 6, like 3.5, 4 game average. I think 50 to 60. Yep. And he's going to have several monster games because he's so versatile.
All right, before we move on to receivers, tight ends, I want to remind our listeners about DraftKings. Our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook and Casino, make sure you download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now and use promo code ITB to play risk-free up to $200 of casino games for your first 24 hours. That's promo code ITB to play up risk-free up to $200 for your first 24 hours of casino play on DraftKings Sportsbook and Casino. Got to be 21 and older, Pennsylvania only. Partnership with Hollywood Casino and Penn National Racecourse. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's move on and talk about wide receivers.
Here we go.
I don't even know if this is so much of an argument anymore, of a discussion. I mean, it's really your first 4 spots, 5 really, are locked up. You can order it, shake it around in a blender.
Go ahead. Who's locked? Okay.
Deshaun Jackson is locked, right?
Yep.
Jalen Reagor is a lock.
Yep.
I would put Greg Ward as a lock.
Of course. Yeah. They don't have another slot. So, yeah.
I would put J.J. Arcega-Whiteside as a lock.
Yes. 4.
Right. Maybe I should say 4. I still think Goodwin is a lock because they renegotiated his contract.
Yeah, it just makes it more palatable, but
I guess.
Well, go
ahead.
What I was going to say with Marquise Goodwin is, if they do cut him, and I think I know where you're going here, we're the veteran receivers on this roster.
Yeah, that's where I was getting at.
Yeah, I could tell, and I'm with you, man. You know what I'd like, and we'll get to Jeffrey in a second. I would like them to have a veteran with size who they could start, because Jeffrey, I don't see any way he's going to be ready for the start of the regular season. Let's just assume he's going to be reserve PUP, because he'll be in PUP. That's 100% to start training camp. Then the question is, when will he be ready during the regular season? They could do it like Jeffrey. If they think he's going to be ready before midseason, they could just take him off it, but he'll count against the roster. But man, if they could just get the one thing they're missing on the outside is its size and physicality without Jeffrey. Now you say Arcega-Whiteside is 6'2". Yeah, but folks, I know he was hurt last year. He did this interview with us over the last couple of weeks, which was very telling. Was Spanish radio station or paper? I can't remember exactly what it was, but I just read the quotes.
Didn't hear.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I did. You're right. The one where he was talking about how much pain he was in.
Yeah, and I appreciate his honesty with it, but he's never done it before, and I like them to have the one thing they're missing, because they solved the speed issue. Obviously, these guys have to show they can do it, but they solved it in terms of the dressing it. They do need a guy on the. If Jeffrey were healthy, they're good. They're about as good as it's going to get. But they don't have that one. Because I'm going to tell you, and I know that people are saying the Eagles might be a track meet team like the Chiefs, but they do have DeMarcus Robinson with Kansas City. Watkins isn't small; he's just over 6 feet. So I'm a little concerned about the lack of size at receiver.
Okay. I think that's fair. I definitely think that's fair. So even if you took the 4, Jackson, Rager, Arcega-Whiteside, and Ward, right? I still think, then they're going to keep 6 receivers. I have a hard time thinking they're going to.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I guess Hightower and Quez Watkins would have to be so much better than Goodwin that you would release Goodwin to keep the 2 rookies. But we keep going back to this. How easy is it going to be for these rookies to just seamlessly transition when they don't even have camps right now? So I think that was a big reason why I felt Goodwin would be on the team. I just don't know how up to speed these rookies are going to be able to get.
One thing I'm going to do is talk to some coaches who were coaching in 2011, coming out of lockout. And don't forget, during the lockout, you were not allowed to talk to teams. Your players couldn't talk to teams. Teams cannot give them their playbook. So they have a better advantage now than they did in 11. I need to talk to coaches who are in there, and we'll have this for our show on Monday, because I want to know how it happened. Because you bring up a great point. It's as I put on our show a couple weeks ago. The word from personnel people was the biggest issue for offensive players with what we're dealing with now, without any on-field coaching, is at quarterback and receiver because of the mental challenges, the processing. So you're right. It's going to be harder. So let's move this forward. Djax, Rager, Ward, and Arcega-Whiteside are on the roster. It's 4. I think I'm gonna lean towards you. It's not a lock. It's not a lock because there's no guaranteed money as contract. It's not a lock, right. But I'm going to put Goodwin on the roster. That's 5. Hightower is a highly skilled kid. As long as he shows he's progressing, he'll be on the roster. If he shows he's the kid that the Eagles drafted out of West Virginia, who should have been cut. What's his name?
Shelton Gibson.
Yeah. If he shows he's
still on
Gibson,
the team.
Well, technically now, right?
Back at the end of last year.
The real story in 2017 was it when they drafted him? Nobody wanted him on the roster. Let's just say most people with the team at that time did not want him on the roster because he didn't earn it. Now,
no, he dropped everything in sight.
But the next spring, he was incredible. And then once the regular season came in, the coaches didn't want him on the field. So it's crazy what happened with him. But the bottom line is, if he doesn't earn a roster spot, he's off the roster. If he shows that he's just making a little bit of progress, then he's number 6. Now, my other question would be, if they're going to keep 6 but not Hightower, I think you're talking about Burnett. You're talking about Robert Davis.
Well, I think maybe Burnett, right? Somebody who might offer them some wide receiver / tight, maybe even Josh Perkins, some wide receiver / tight end flex ability, because they might go low on tight end. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, because we'll get to that. Oh, and that's really one of the issues. That's keeping the 3rd tight end is the biggest issue. Really, of all these positions, they did it last year. But before we move to tight end, I want to give you a sleeper. He won't make the team because there's well, theoretically, he could if they had an off season. But there's a kid named Manasseh Bailey from Morgan State who they signed. They gave some money to. This kid could flat out bleeping fly, and he's not small. So he's from Morgan State.
Right.
They got some good information on this kid. I don't quite know how I never heard of him. I was like, who is? I want to make sure I said his name right. His name is Manasseh Bailey. And I just I did a little digging here. This kid could run, and he's not small. But as you correctly said, this year it's going to be even harder for an undrafted free agent to make it at receiver. But for practice squad possibility, absolutely. If this kid could flat out run, he's not small.
No relation to Rashid Bailey, right?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't.
I'm just kidding.
And Rashid and I know each other pretty well. Rashid doesn't run very well, but he's tough as bleep, and he's a Philly kid. Great kid, by the way. He got robbed by Chip Kelly, man. Chip Kelly caught him when he shouldn't have caught him. Yeah. I'm biased, but what can I tell you?
There you go. As you mentioned, Alshon Jeffrey starting the year very likely on PUP.
Yep.
so he doesn't count toward the
Oh,
6
oh,
that they
yes,
have.
correct. His
Okay.
roster spot won't count. Okay, how are you drafting Djax and Jalen Reagor for fantasy?
Very carefully, to be honest with you,
Okay.
for different reasons. Obviously, Deshaun, you're careful because of the injury. Obviously, with Rager, you're careful just because, you know, Rager might have really good upside. I mean, he might have. Uh, I just remember when Deshaun, who was a second round pick, and by the way, he wasn't even the Eagles' first second round pick. Trevor Laws was drafted ahead of
Oh,
Deshaun Jackson that year.
oh
Um,
my God.
I just remember that
Wow.
Deshaun came into such a great situation because Donovan, the offensive line was pretty good. Andy Reid, and if everyone's healthy, Rager really comes into such a great situation with having Ertz and Wentz and this offensive line, and he really could have some real explosive play. Like he's not going to be a high volume receiver, I don't think, but he could be like that 3 for 65, almost Terry McLaurin like as a rookie, and that would actually make him a pretty worthy draft pick, especially in a keeper league. I don't know about a PPR league.
That's it. Right. So I would, for a keeper dynasty league, for folks who don't play fantasy, what it means is keeper leagues, you keep a small amount, typically maybe 3, 4, 5, 7 players. In a dynasty league, you keep all the players. So in a redraft league where this is not year to year, you just draft the team that you draft this year, then you redraft the next year. I see Rager's a late round pick with some upside. But for the future, because he's going to be starting, they hope, for 10 years, Djax 13th year, it's almost hard to believe, but
Wow.
I think he's going to be a number 2 fantasy receiver with upside because this kid's super competitive. The dad,
man.
Yeah, he's got it. He's got
two?
well, for the future, not this year. I'm talking about way down the road. I think eventually he's
okay.
yeah, for keeper dynasty leagues. I think he's going to be a number 2 fantasy receiver for the future, not this year. No, he's barely draftable.
Deshaun, though? Is
Low end
Deshaun
2,
wide receiver 3? Flex?
Yeah, I was going to say low end 2, high end 3. Yeah, you exactly.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
All right, cool. Let's they fold in together. We'll talk about tight end. Zacher, I think and Andrew DeCecco noted this in his story in his too early 53-man projection, and it was a really good point that the ability now to have practice squad players flexed to your active roster on game day, right, is a way that a team like the Eagles could stash a tight end on the practice squad, but then have them available. You know what I'm saying? Like for a weekend on a game day.
Right. So what they'll have to do is they'll bring them up. Let's say it's a Sunday game. You'd sign them off. You don't have to cut anyone, which is great. And then now but he's going to have to be put through waivers. I'm sure it's the same rule. If you want to cut him, he goes through waivers, and then if he clears, he goes back to your practice. You could sign him back to your practice squad. But yeah, you're right. I mean, tight end wise, and you could always use an extra lineman, which they've done before, if you have to. And Mailata would be that guy. Maybe you use as a third tight end if you have to, or Matt Pryor or someone like that. Josh Perkins and the kid Alex Ellis, those are the ones that would kind of compete for the third job. But I'm kind of with you. If you're going to go heavy at receiver, you're going to go light somewhere else. And to me, it would be Ertz and Goddard, obviously, and then it's kind of we have to wait and see. We got to see. But man, they really would like someone. That Richard Rodgers role, man. Whenever he was healthy, he really fulfilled it. He just hurt all the time.
Yeah, I think if they had a third tight end out, they would definitely a veteran. They would find some time to get him on the field. So I wouldn't rule out the Eagles bringing in a veteran. Although, do you consider Alex Ellis a veteran? I mean, he's been with them for since last year. He was on the Saints before that. I know he's not like 6 or 7 years in, but he is a guy that they've brought back now.
Yeah, like someone who can block. Jeff Swaim, who was cut by the Jaguars, Ed Dixon, who was cut by the Seahawks, who's had some injury issues. Someone like that to me would make the most sense. Someone asked me about Delaney Walker. What sense would that make? Because he's not going to play.
I am all on the Jeff Swaim
I love
train.
him. I love I'm sorry.
I'm on the Jeff Swaim train.
Oh, Jeff Swaim. Well, as a third tight end. But someone had asked me about Delaney Walker on Twitter. I'm like thinking, why would he sign with Philly to be a third tight end? What sense is that?
Right.
Yeah.
You know why I'm on the Jeff Swaim train, right?
Other than it sounds funny the way you say it. No, I have no idea.
Well, he's a fellow Geoff Jeff. I mean,
duh. I'm stupid. I'm not very smart. Yeah. I was gonna say, man, if you tell me Penn State, I'm hanging up.
No, I thought you were gonna say I'm not that corny to make that joke.
Yeah. So that's it with tight end. So I'm gonna say 2 for now.
Yeah.
Like you said, if they find a veteran who could block, it'd be 3. And now the last position, which is going to be fascinating because there's so many permutations with keeping 9 or 10.
Yeah, there is. And really quick, before we even get into that, I want to just pause to give a shout out to our friends at PHLSportsNation.com, enhancing the fan experience with their coverage of the Eagles, the Flyers, the Sixers, the Phillies, putting out great podcasts as well. You know, continuing to fulfill our thirst for content during this pandemic. So shout out to PHLSportsNation.com. Make sure you go to their website and check out all their great work. And real quick, we will pause for another word from our other great sponsors. All right, Adam, you referenced the offensive line. There's a lot of decision made. This was definitely of the offense, the toughest for me to figure out.
Yeah, I would say offensive line. You're gonna laugh. This actually took me 15 minutes to go through this.
Uh-huh.
I was doing a little bit of using a pencil really, because when you're trying to figure this one out, so the thing is they don't really have any veteran backups.
Right.
So I'm like, well, okay, they just drafted 2 guys. So let's go over it.
Mm-hmm.
We know the 5 are definitely make it. Dillard, Sayamalo, Kelsey, Brandon Brooks, and Lane Johnson. Okay. Right. Matt Pryor 6, mm-hmm. Jordan Mailata 7.
Mm-hmm.
They are literally infatuated with this kid. Geoff knows this, not a secret.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows it. So there's your 7. Now, let's move this forward here.
I mean, Jack Driscoll's a 4th round pick. He'd have to be terrible not to make it, right?
That's 8. Yeah, I'm with you. Yep.
So I gave the Eagles in my roster prediction that veteran that you're talking about.
Oh, well, what are you doing about Herbig, who did make it last year?
So glad you brought that up. All right. So first of all, I gave them a veteran offensive lineman who's not on the roster yet. You may have heard of him before. He's pretty decent. His name is Jason Peters.
Yeah. Look, they actually met. They met with his agent at the combine, and they kind of told him where they were at, and that's when they came up with the plan to make that announcement.
Right.
They've left the door open for him to return, but they have a price in mind if he comes back. But the thing I cannot got a straight answer from anyone. Is Peters starting or not? No one will tell me. I mean, I don't, because the situation is they have to tell him, like, okay, Jason, if they do wind up bringing him back, here's he accepts the money. Maybe there'll be some upside if he starts.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's just assuming he'll start. But this day and age, man, it's just not. How do you set a 1st round pick for 2 years?
I don't know how. And that's why in my prediction, I don't. He's the starting left tackle. Peters comes back. He's going to be the backup swing. I wrote it in the story. Who knows, right? I'm just, this is how I see it playing out. It may not be that way. But I think, and even another fascinating conversation, Adam, as we talk about the last spot, is you need a backup center, right? So either you're assuming Isaac Sayamalo would move to center if Kelsey were to get hurt, and then you just keep a backup interior offensive lineman, or you do what they did last year, and that's you kind of keep a pure backup center, and that was Nate Herbig, who never played. He made the team as a rookie free agent. But I would say Herbig's got some competition because they really like the kid that they signed. I hope I pronounced the name right. Luke Joriga?
Yeah, Joriga, right. He's an undrafted free agent this year.
I mean, I don't know if he's going to be good enough to unseat Herbig, but he's just a guy that I know that they speak highly of.
Their college staff and their scouting of unearthing these like offensive linemen, and this goes back to who was the guy built like a fire hydrant? The center, Nick
Cole.
Nick Cole.
Yeah.
Find these guys nobody wants.
I got a great story about Nick Cole.
Give it to me. Go ahead. I want to hear it.
I just remember when I forget who got hurt, and he had I think it was Max Gene Gillies got hurt.
Max Gene Gillis, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, Gillis. And then he had to go play right guard. And then I think Jamal Jackson got hurt, and then he had to go play center, and somebody else had to play right guard. And we're all surrounding his locker. And Nick Cole spoke like 5 words to people. He was a very quiet guy. And we were basically asking him as reporters, how are you going to deal with this? You were a backup, then you were a backup right guard. Now you're a center. You haven't played center all year. And he just looked at everybody and goes, I'm going to be fine, like calmly. And we go, why are you so confident? And he says, because I got Juan Castillo coaching me. That's why.
Wow.
And he just walked away.
God, I'm looking this up. I don't remember this. I gotta look this up.
I swear, he just looked
That's
at me
awesome.
and said, I got Juan Castillo.
Wow.
That's why.
Wow. All right. Well, Juan is where's he now? God, I can't remember. Is he Baltimore?
Chicago, I thought.
Chicago, yeah, Chicago. I'm sorry. Yeah. Good for their head coach.
Yes.
For bringing him in. So here's what we said the 5. Driscoll we're putting on there.
Yeah.
Mailata and Pryor. That's 8.
Mm-hmm.
And Prince Tegawanago, he's not good. He's a project.
He's got Phantom IR written all over him, doesn't he?
Yeah, I know. It's funny. Clubs are really not the league. It's kind of like the NFL for folks that follow the NBA. Remember their injured list they used to have for years ago. It was called the lower lumbar strain. Every team would.
Oh yeah.
They'd fake it. It was common knowledge that the player was not hurt.
Yeah.
But just they put them on their injured list, and they removed that years ago. But the league does crack down. They actually do. By the way, the NFL personnel office, they do visit teams periodically to make sure they're not cheating, make sure guys are actually hurt. They they check into stuff. But yeah, to me, he's just a project he's just not going to be ready this season.
Yeah, I remember covering minor league baseball one day, by the way, and the manager of the team tells me so and so is going on the DL, and I go, with what? He goes, he pulled his half-two muscle, and I said, his what? He goes, his half-two muscle. I said, what's a half-two muscle? And he says, we got too many players. We have to put them on the DL.
That's awesome. You got some good stories, man.
Oh man,
my NFL stories are too dirty, but
that's another story for another time.
I don't want to forget one guy though.
Yeah, okay.
And by the way, I want to credit the Eagles because I've spent enough time questioning the whole Jalen Hurts 53rd overall and critiquing. But
you wouldn't be alone there. Yes,
I know. I do appreciate what they've done as far as bringing in offensive line talent throughout the draft and rookie and RFAs over the last 2 years, because you hit on one or two of those guys, like you're in good shape. And I don't want to forget. Yeah, I don't want to forget Sua Opeta is a guy that they like.
Sua Opeta,
last year too. So I kind of put that Matt Pryor. I don't know if Matt Pryor is going to make it. If they want, you got Matt Pryor. Well, if you say you're starting 5, your veteran backup is 6, Driscoll is 7, then you got 2 more spots.
Here's the problem. Of their 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 backup offensive linemen, only 1 has played an NFL game, and that's Matt Pryor.
Right, but is one NFL game really going to be the
2?
Difference?
We actually played 2, but
2, right?
Is that started 2?
Is that going to be a difference over if Sua Opeta or if Nate Herbig or if Luke Juriga is really impressed? And we're talking about a guy who's going to be inactive most likely anyway. So unless Jack Driscoll is the guy that's
we said it earlier here at the offensive lineman. To me, they've got to sign a veteran.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not reporting they are because I haven't asked yet. I only asked about 1 million questions last month, but I because we had not even got to the offensive line breakdowns. I'm glad we're doing this. We haven't done it yet.
Right.
I don't. It's and I know because you started this last season about they need to start playing younger players. You got me thinking about that, and I'm all for that.
Mm-hmm.
But until you've done it at, offensive line is so important. The importance the Eagles especially put into it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little bit wary of having a backup with no experience. And I know sometimes, as you said, you got to get it at some point.
Right.
But I'd like to have someone who's at least done it before. And Pryor to me is that guy who's at least done it.
All right. Well, I agree with you. Look, take the starting 5. Okay. Take Jordan Mailata. That's 6. We said they're going to sign a veteran backup. It might be Jason Peters, and maybe he's a starter. Who knows they're going to have somebody. That will be 7. Jack Driscoll, 8. So if I kind of think that Matt Pryor shouldn't just be penciled in and not maybe 2 years ago they only kept 8. So I don't know. We'll have to see. I definitely think this is a competition plays itself out.
Well, this is different though, because remember they were not drafting linemen. For a while they were not really, doing that, and now you see the last 2 years with Dillard last year. Herbie Kid made it. Opeta they do like. Pryor's now in his 3rd year, by the way.
Right.
Mailata they think the world of.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like they were spending super high capital until they drafted Dillard. So, so I'm going to say I'm going to say 9 or 10.
Okay.
And I'm putting the starting 5 with Dillard for now. Dillard starting left tackle.
Right.
Pryor, Driscoll, Mylott, and Herberg are my 9. Now,
Okay.
10 would be Peters.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll do defense. Our defense show will drop on Monday. One thing I'm going to tell you is I don't see them keep more than 5 linebackers. That's because what personnel people always tell me is that
when you go heavy somewhere else, you got to go thin somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And the place where you could cheat a little bit is linebacker, because this is not a position where they put a lot of resources in.
Right.
That's the way it is.
Okay. Well, good. I look forward to getting into the defensive side of the ball with you for our next podcast. And that's going to do it right now for Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. Want to give a big thanks to our producer, Hunter Brody. Check out his work on YouTube, Sports Talk with Broads. Check out his podcast, Processed, with former Villanova star Darrell Reynolds. And check him out on Twitter, @Broads81. He's also on the midday show with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN, which you can hear every day if you download their free mobile app. Again, check out the Inside the Birds YouTube page. Check out our work on InsideTheBirds.com. I know Adam will be having a NFL mailbag, an NFL notebook on the website fairly soon. We'll have some fresh content updated, and we'll be good to go there. So as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.